my sisters, higher we shall go, moving forward. Never.
When we share our stories, when we show to the next generation what is possible, and we serve as their emotional support and a leaning tower, the biggest decision you would ever make in your entire life is about your life partner. But when you set your mind, your values on who you want to be, what you want to become, you can achieve it.
Higher we shall go. With my sisters, I can never be.
My full name is actually Tolulope Longe, but I prefer to be called Tolu simply. Today, I work with Nigeria LNG Limited. I'm the manager, commercial contracts and management. And in that particular role, what I do is all the products that LNG produces, whether it's LNG, condensates, or LPG, I help ensure that those products actually get to the end customers. Apart from being the manager, commercial contracts management, I am also the National President for Women in Energy, Oil and Gas Nigeria. I took over that role February 2025. Prior to that, I was the National Vice President for the same organization, Women in Energy, Oil and Gas. Before that, within NLNG itself, I actually helped co-found our own in-house women organization. It's called the NLNG Women Initiative Network. And from 2022 to 23, I was actually the chairperson of that particular organization as well. I also wear several caps. I'm passionate about things like Nigeria first and making Nigeria great, and so I help to contribute on the Nigerian content umbrella and push the narrative where possible. I went to Mayflower School in Ekene, which was a school that a lot of people may know, that was started by Taisho Laring. So for my class set, I'm also the current chairperson of our class sets, where we're also doing quite a number of things. Other than that, I also support a number of charity organizations. One of the ones that I'm quite passionate about, I'm also a director on that particular association, is one that focuses more on young children, providing literary support to them, as well as people that are incarcerated in prisons, where we provide support. Another one, it's called Hope Charity as well, where it also focuses a lot on young girls. That focuses a lot of young girls in Finima, Bonny area as well. So I've got my hands in a number of pots and pies, particularly for women in energy, oil and gas. One of the things I'm very passionate about, and what I want to particularly achieve during my tenure, is I see a lot of women in the oil and gas industry, but financial freedom, access to finances, to be able to take their businesses to the next level, is something that we have identified as a major challenge. So other than what we're doing in terms of advocacy on behalf of women and the youth, one of the key areas I want my tenure to also focus on is providing that financial access to be able to scale up to the next level in terms of the business that people are doing. And the second thing I'm particularly also passionate about is, I believe, as we were told when I was back in Mayflower, that I shall pass through this world but once. So I only have one opportunity to be able to impact people and make a difference in the lives of people. So that's, I try to do as much as possible. And one of the ways I do that is by mentoring young girls. So currently in WEOG, we actually have a cohort of ladies that are less than 5 years in the industry. About 70 of them that we're mentoring. That relationship would come, official relationship, comes to an end this November. Then we'll be starting another cohort come January. And this is aside from some of the other mentoring relationships that I have with both young girls, young men, and all that. Because I believe when we share our stories, when we show to the next generation what is possible, and we serve as their emotional support and a leaning tower, then it's easier for them to be able to scale whatever challenges they may be facing, and knowing that yes, it's possible, and that they can also become whatever they choose to be as well. I'm originally from a town called Oderemo in Ogun State. It's just along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That's where my father is from. My mother is also from Ogun State, and she's from a town called Ota. You may or may not have heard about it. And I come from a family of 6 children. 2 of us were girls and 4 boys. So as a matter of fact, my parents had 2 boys, then 2 girls, then 2 boys. So we're sort of like divided, the first 3 and second 3. So I'm the leader of the last 3 because I'm the second girl. My older sister is part of the first group. And as a young girl, number one, maybe because we had 4 boys in the house, and boys would always be boys, and so we were generally given, I didn't have a conception about boys are fully different from girls, you act in one particular way. And that progressed until I got to secondary school. That was where the who I am today, I think, was fully solidified. But before then, I'd like to share one small memory. I think one of the biggest women, apart from my mother, that also shaped me was largely my paternal grandmother. She was a trader, and so I grew up in Lagos. I was born and bred in Lagos. So at some point, because I was child number 4, and my father was going on postings across the country, they decided, I can't remember for whatever reason, they decided to take me to my grandmother, to live with my grandmother, that they couldn't handle 4 kids. So I lived with my grandmother for some time. So I learned a lot from, I was very young, but I have a lot of very vivid memories. Some of the conversations we had, some of the things she told me. So she was my first hero in life, the first person I looked up to, because I picked up quite a lot from her as well. Then when I went to secondary school, I went to Mayflower School, Ikene, which was owned by Taisholari at the time. And, I came from a primary school where we wore gowns, and we got to school the first day. As we got to the staff this day, one of the first things they said to us was, everybody has a low cut. So first you have to literally shave off your head and carry a low cut. The next thing was the school uniform was a pair of shorts and a blouse. From that day, I fell in love. And later on, Taisha Lanre's explanation for having even the girls wear shorts rather than the typical skirts or whatever was that he wanted there to be no inhibitions. He wanted you to be able to be yourself. You want to climb a tree, you're not wondering if somebody is looking up your skirt. You want to do anything, you're just totally and completely free. And that was so liberating. And throughout my time in Mayflower, there were lots of teachings, doctrines, eye-opening things that I picked up. And I think for me, to a large extent, that experience shaped who I am today. It was a lot of principles and acting with integrity, working with a spirit of excellence, And for me, that was amazing. And when I was in secondary school, it was also my first exposure to leadership. Because back then, when you're close to your final year, the way they choose officers, senior prefect girl, senior prefect boy. For us back then, it used to be an election. You had to put yourself up for an election and people would vote for you. And when you become an officer, you have to uphold certain principles, tenets. You have to be able to stand on stage and be able to speak and all that. So I decided to put myself up for elections, even though I was prior to then unknown. And that was another experience for me, particularly on my leadership journey, because it exposed me to a lot and it gave me an opportunity to be able to work closely with the likes of Taisha Lanre as part of the leadership of the student body at the time. So I would say that's my journey, that's my background into who I am today. So during my childhood, we had lots of different stories, experiences. But there's one particular experience that stands out for me, and it was my father. So I think I was like Form 2 or Form 3, then in secondary school. We were home for the holidays. My father had a dinner engagement. So it took me along. So it was just himself and myself that had the dinner with the business partners. At the time, my father was, I think, a general manager or something in a bank at the time. So he had this dinner dates with this, I think it was Koreans, Chinese type people. And we went to this Chinese restaurant. And throughout dinner, obviously, apart from the first few minutes where he introduced me who I was and we met, I just sat down quietly eating my meal and they had their own conversations. So afterwards, as we were going home and we were seated at the back of a car because somebody was driving, and he said, okay, so what did you think of that experience? What was that about? And we had a good conversation. And then at the end of the day, he said the main purpose or the main thing he wanted me to take from that experience was that, if I recall well, during the conversations, the guys were asking him to do something and they were telling him that his predecessor, they built a house for him, they bought him a car, they gave him a lot of gifts, and they were prepared to do the same to him. So he said to me, never sell your integrity, because you heard all the things they said about my predecessor. The same thing they would say about me to my successor. So, to what gain? So he said, never compromise your integrity in life. And throughout my life, that has always stayed with me. And it was funny when I moved into this room and they put this on the wall, and you can see on the word on the wall says integrity. And I laughed and said, it's like you guys want me to have a constant reminder that integrity is all about me, and it's about doing the right thing, irrespective of whether somebody is watching or not. So that particular experience always stands out for me and always reminds me, as they used to say back then, the daughter of whom I am, and to stay true to that identity. Really, that's, I would say, is the biggest experience that stood out to me till date. From secondary school, obviously, I went to University of Ibadan. I was admitted to study industrial chemistry. Well, actually chemistry, and then somewhere along the line, I changed to industrial chemistry. I've always loved a challenge, right? So when I finished from UI, I went obviously for my NYSC. And at the time in my household, it was standard for the process my father put us through was once you finish your first degree, you would then go abroad for a second degree. So I had actually gained admission into the Imperial College University of London at that time. And between NYSC and resumption, I was looking for pocket money because I didn't want to do many odd jobs. So I went to the UK. I wanted to have sufficient financial empowerment. So I decided I was going to look for a job between NYSC and starting school. So I was submitting my CVs everywhere and looking for a job. Eventually, I got a number of jobs. This NLNG one was one of those jobs I got. And I was in a dilemma because it looked like such an amazing job. So I went to my brother-in-law and asked him, what do you think? And he said, look, when you go to school and you finish school, what's your plan? I said, well, to come back to Nigeria and get a job with an oil and gas company. I said, well, now you have it. What do you think? So that was one of the key deciding moments. I then decided, okay, I'm going to take the job, do it for 1 year, and then go to school. I did it for the first year. I deferred my admission and deferred it a second time, and I ended up not going through with that. But in the meantime, whilst working, I've been able to do 2 master's degrees. So I did an MBA eventually with the same Imperial College. I eventually did an MBA with them, and I also did a Master of Technology for Petroleum Technology with the Curtin University of Australia. So whilst working. And so, like I said, basically straight out of NYC, I joined Nigeria LNG, and I started work on the plant. At that time, it was under construction and about to go into commissioning when I started as a process engineer. And then from there, I said I wanted something more challenging, then changed from process engineering to process control engineering, which was supposed to be tougher. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. And as a process control engineer, I got an opportunity to work on our 24 and 5 project when it was still in the design phase. So I worked out of the London office back then with Kellogg. At some point also in my journey as a process control engineer, I got an opportunity to be posted to the Netherlands and worked with Shell as an advanced process control consultant in the Netherlands for a little over three years. Then I came back to Nigeria. I worked on our 24 and 5 projects, and I moved back into production division. Again, continued as a control engineer. Then later on, changed to projects. So I did process and utilities integration work. I did front-end development for projects and all that. Eventually, I became the manager, production support, where I was in charge of providing all the technological support to the entire 6-train operation. And after that, I came into this particular role, which is a complete deviation from production into commercial. And I understand come early next year, I would also be changing roles into, but I leave that under wraps for now, for something completely different again. So, but the beauty of all these different roles for me is, number one, it's the challenge, because again, like I said, I'm a strong believer in that anyone can become whatever you choose to be. And over the years, I've had people like me come into the company. And I remember a particular conversation with a younger lady who had done chemistry like me. And she was like, oh, I'm so afraid that one day people would wake up and discover I'm not an engineer. And I'm being employed like an engineer. I'm working like an engineer. How do I make a success of it? And I said, the truth of the matter is, what you studied in uni is a platform, but it's not who you are. Who you are is what's in here. As long as you've got something in here and you're willing to apply yourself and you're willing to learn, I said you would be surprised. All the people with engineering degrees would not be able to hold the light to you in terms of the value you'd be able to bring to the company. So don't think about it. And today I still give the same message to a lot of the people I coach, mentor, and encourage. That don't let your background hold you back, but be willing to leave your old ways, learn, unlearn, and relearn, and be willing in any role you find yourself to give your very best. And I'm sure that your value will always shine through. So for me, that has sort of like been my journey. So for me, as I said previously, I believe that I shall pass through this world but once. So anything I can do to support somebody else to make their lives easier. And I strongly believe that when we come in contact with somebody, with an individual, we should be able to leave a positive impression on them, such that it also inspires them to want to be better than they were yesterday. Now, in terms of women supporting women, I think there's a lot of misconception around women not supporting women. So personally, I like to say, I don't say it as a genderized thing. I don't go out to say I'm purely supporting you because you're a woman or because you're a man, but I do it because it's the right thing to do, right? We're human beings, and for me, the Bible says, love your neighbor as thyself. It didn't say love your male neighbors only, or love your female neighbors. It just says, identify whether by geographical location or otherwise, the person next to you is your neighbor, and you should love them just the same way you love yourself. So if that is a doctrine that we believe in, and you say, so whether it's a man or a woman, you should do right by them in the first instance. And particularly for me, when I look at Nigeria, Africa, and I spent a lot of time in my younger days in the village as well. So I see what women go through a lot. You see women taking care of 9, 10, 11, 12 children. No real financial empowerment. They're just managing to make ends meet. And for a lot of us, our mothers, our grandmothers are the first, should I say, role models that we have. They're like our superheroes. And if we're not careful, a lot of times we see them struggle and we normalize struggle. That struggle is what should be what women are meant for. But there's more to life than struggling. And the second part for me is, I always say, imagine a Mike Tyson during his heydays. And then you say, okay, he's a right-handed boxer. You then put him in a ring with Buster Douglas, and then you decide to tie his right hand behind his back. What do you think the outcome of that fight is? He's definitely losing. And for me, I believe that is what is happening, particularly in our villages in Nigeria and on the African continent. When we don't let our young girls, women, participate in the economic development, then we're basically saying, you know what? I'm tying my right hand behind my back. Our success can never be the same level as what we see in the Western world. Because sometimes we're possibly even leaving our best brains, our best innovators, and our best entrepreneurs behind. And for me, I think if as a nation we want to reach our best potential, all hands have to be on deck, really. Every young girl, every young woman, every old person, everybody has to be contributing. But in saying that narrative, I'm also mindful of the fact that if you over-tilt to one side and you focus purely on the female gender and exclude the male gender, you would also see some of the symptoms we're seeing in society today, where we're training our girls to be queens, but we're training our boys to be miscreants. At the end of the day, if the world is made like your male-female, you expect those miscreants at some point to marry the queens. What do we expect will happen to our future generations, 2-3 generations down the line? So again, for me, that's why it's not just about women supporting women. As we support the young girls and we support the women, we also have to support the boys. And like I said previously, I think sometimes there's a misinterpretation regarding what is required. So I'll give you a few classic examples. If you look whether in the workplace or in society, when a man is perceived as a strong person, the same characteristics is displayed. If it's a woman, we tend to misinterpret it as aggression, domineering, and all that. And sometimes when it's women working with women, that I feel is also to a large extent misconstrued. If a senior woman works with a young woman, and just because she expects excellence from everybody working with her, sometimes a woman may feel maybe she's singling me out and punishing me, not necessarily. And the other side of it, I feel, is also, women were just wonderfully and fearfully made by God. So we have our emotional needs and our requirements are different from the men. A lot of men don't come into the workplace with their emotions. They leave it at the doorstep. But as women, we find it difficult to do that. So if a woman that requires more emotional support is working with another woman that feels, you should be able to drop that, sometimes there's misunderstanding. And I think that's why sometimes we misunderstand it, like maybe women are not supporting women. But personally, what I find for me that works is a lot of us are hypocrites, so to speak, because we're hiding behind the facade. But the moment somebody is able to say, okay, as my superior, I'd like to have a one-on-one engagement with you. I believe there's a tension in the room between us. There's something between us, and I'd just like to understand what it is so that we can be able to work better. A lot of times we don't confront those situations as women. we are afraid to speak up, so we let the situation fester. So sometimes the person may not even know that they're biased towards you or they're treating you differently. So until we learn to speak up about our situation and how we want things to change, I feel there would always continue to be this misinterpretation about women not supporting women. I'm a strong believer in the fact that yes, you can have it all. It may not always be at the same point in time, but yes, you can. So I'll share partially my journey through this experience. So when I joined Nigeria LNG, we had done this recruitment exercise. I think there were over 20,000 candidates. And eventually the company decided to hire only 16 people. Of the 16 people, I was the only female. Everybody else was male. As a matter of fact, my employment letter read Mr. because whoever was typing was so convinced that everybody would be a man. And I remember going for the medicals and people were going in, they were pairing us up in twos to go for the medicals because we were doing the ECG and you had to remove your top. And they thought I was an imposter since the list was all misters. But okay, very... So, and then they employed the second batch of graduates at the time. And it was also 16. Also another woman amongst 16 people. So for me, I would say throughout my career, I've always literally been the only woman in the room. And especially because I went through the engineering ladder. So where I think until I became like a line head, I was literally almost the only woman in the team. Even when I went abroad on assignment, I was literally almost like, I think we had only one or two other women in the team throughout the time. So I guess maybe because my background, I had always been around 4 boys at home. I got to secondary school, I was told, you are no different from them. Whatever they do, please go ahead. The world is your oyster. So for me, I came into that environment without that baggage that being a woman was a disadvantage. For me, it was like you can become whatever you choose to be. So for me, that was never a limitation. And one thing I would say to women particularly, the biggest decision you would ever make in your entire life is about your life partner. Because you would end up spending more time with them in your life than you spend from day one till you get married. So it's important to have certain crucial conversations with your potential life partner and ensure that you choose right and you choose somebody that will support you. Because I think a lot of the places where women start to struggle is from the partners. So when women start having children, if they have the full support of their life partner, number one hurdle is sorted, and life from there is easier, because it is to a large extent the aspiration of literally every young girl, every young lady to one day either be married and have kids, So you have to put that into consideration when choosing a life partner. I would say is the biggest thing. The second biggest thing for me is you have to know what your values are and what you can compromise and what you can't compromise. Because sometimes I ask myself, what's the biggest thing why we talk sort of like go into employment, entrepreneurship and all that? A lot of times it's around financial freedom, if you think about it very well. Otherwise, we can all choose to be stay-at-home moms anyways. And the fact that we also want to feel valued. So the question then is, when you're working and you're having children and the entire environment is putting so much stress on you, what is important to you? And like one of the people, I had a conversation recently and somebody posted something on LinkedIn that was in that room. And the person titled something like, you have to know what enough is for you. What is enough? Is it chasing that promotion? Is it chasing that big office? Is it chasing that title? If that is your enough and it makes you feel whole, by all means, go for it. But if at that particular point in time, your enough is giving your very best to your family, to your children, because I always say, eventually in 20, 30 years, when your children are all grown, if they don't become useful members of society, would you still feel fulfilled? Even if you became the MD of the company or you became the richest person. So you have to know what your values are and what's most important to you and what enough looks like. So there will be times when you will say, you know what? My children are my priority. Maybe they're going to school somewhere far. I want to be able to give them my attention. I want to be able to give them my time. At other times, it may be if you have aged parents. Your aged parents, because you appreciated what they did for you when you were a child, you want to be able to be there for them. So there may be times when there's a promotion interview that is about to take place. But this is my priority. I leave that and go for my priority. Because I also believe strongly in the fact that whatever has been designed for me by God, God will always make a way where there seems to be no ways. So even if I go and attend to my husband, my children, or my parents, if God has destined that I would get that job, something would happen. Sometimes they would then decide, they cancel the interview on that particular day, just because I wasn't there and God wants me to be a part of it. So for me, my advice to young women is, know who you are at the heart of you. Your success and your joy and your happiness can only be determined by you. No third party can give you ultimate joy or happiness. Not your husband, not your children. They're a part of it. If you cannot be internally happy by yourself, nobody can fill that gap. And you have to know what enough looks like, what your priorities are, and know that it is okay to chase one thing at a time rather than trying to chase all at a time and dropping all the balls. Know what's important to you and focus and chase that. And for me, I also believe, I'm a person of faith, and I also believe strongly that having a personal relationship with God, and more importantly, knowing when the Holy Spirit communicates and how communicates with you, so that you can always follow the leading of the Holy Spirit in whatever situation you find yourself. For me, would be the key things, I would say. So my husband and I also pay for the tuition, academics of some young girls, and so we've been doing this since. So we pick a few girls, then from like primary school, pay through university till they graduate, and all those kinds of things. For a lot of them, I don't like to be identified or associated directly, but prefer to do it from a distance. When my father hit a major milestone, myself and my siblings also like to get money and then go to the village and ask him to use it for a project that particularly supports underprivileged kids and their ability to be able to go to school. We've been trying to do something bigger like a health center as well, but our biggest concern is a lot of times those items get stolen from health centers and those kinds of things. For some of our milestone birthdays as well, what we do is we buy items and we go to orphanages and we give those to the orphanages. And every year we actually have a budget that we set aside for giving back to orphanages. But then again, like I said, for me, it's not about directly identifying me because I don't believe that's what that charity is about. I also have a number of charities I support financially, give money to some monthly, some annually to be able to support their projects because I believe that we just need to give back. But because if you fail to give back today, maybe the person you fail to give back to may be somebody that comes to affect your life negatively in future. Because I believe also that what goes around comes around, which is why I have to put good into the world, into the environment. If good must come back to me. If I put evil or if I don't put anything, the same thing will also come back to me. So for me, I would say those are some of the things that I do more like on a personal this thing where I relatively prefer anonymity. And then if I look at my secondary school, because as we know, we also have challenges. Not all hands are equal for all the people you went to school with as well. So we also do things in that respect. Some I do personally, but I prefer behind the scenes than being personally identified. I don't know. It's just against my philosophy of charity or giving, kind of, you know. For me, being a prudent woman just reminds me of the virtuous woman in the Bible. I remember in the Bible definition or explanation of what the virtuous woman was, it wasn't just about finances. It started from being prudent with the time she even wakes up in the morning, right? To how she deals with her household, her children, her husband, and more importantly, how she deals with the people around her, right? Because for me, being prudent, even with your words and with kindness, would go a lot more than giving money to people. Because I like to say, you have to be mindful with your interactions with people. Because there's a way that your words, just even your being, can encourage somebody and speak life into someone. And sometimes just your words can be the turning point for somebody. You never know who is at the point of, God forbid, suicide. And you may say such a negative word and speak it into the life of that person. And you know what the Bible says, that our words become life. And it may encourage that person to go down that rabbit hole. But on the other hand, speaking with kindness and putting others in your shoes goes a long way for me. So for me, the definition of a prudent woman would be all the way from when you wake up, what your plans are, how you manage your time, your resources, your words, and particularly in being kind to people with your words. Not nice, being kind, because there's a difference between nice and kind as well. Obviously, all the ones that were being prudent with your finances also helps a long way, but yeah. For me personally, I'm not a materialistic person, right? I'm not the type of person that loves shopping. When I'm going to a mall to buy something, if I say I'm going to buy a belt, I'm focusing on my energy on the belt. Until I buy that belt, I will not be distracted from that mission. So, and like I said earlier, I personally believe that as human beings, we really need more than 20 clothes at any particular point in time. So even if you are going to get more, then you should give out parts of what you already have, in my opinion. And there's one thing I also say to people when I mentor and encourage them. A lot of times, the reason why I believe that as human beings, we're so stressed about trying to achieve more and more and more is because we're constantly thinking about people around us and what they will think about us. And at the end of the day, their opinions don't matter. The only person's opinion or the only being's opinion that matters is God, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. So, for me, I say to people, why are you constantly looking to build a mansion? Even if you buy a bed, check it when you sleep, unless you are the type that scatters body. You always end up sleeping on one tiny part. Every morning I wake up, I still find myself at that tiny part. The whole of the rest of the bed is still not used. Yet you are chasing a mansion with 10 rooms, 20 rooms. You can't sleep in it. You are chasing buying 5 cars. You can't use more than 1 car. So really, what does your enough look like? And for me, all those things don't matter and will never matter. And there's one other thing that I like. People talk about legacies. And I tell them that when you focus on legacies, in my opinion, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Because the day this breath ceases, anything that is happening in this world, you don't know. So what's a legacy to you when you're dead and gone? Is it going to feed you in the other world? Is it going to determine whether you enter through the gates of heaven? For me, legacy should be people around you. When they like what you do, when they like what you have done, they decide to create a legacy in your name to continue to remember you by. But when you yourself are determined, I want to leave a legacy by building 10 houses, by making sure my name is on one building, the day you die, it makes no difference. And it will not determine whether you enter the gates of heaven. After all, when they were given, the Bible said the woman that gave the least was adjured as having given the most. So why are you chasing unnecessary legacies? Be content with the little you have and use it, I would say, judiciously and prudently. And for me, that is what matters most in life. Not about chasing material legacies. I would have rather chase the legacy of ensuring that every little child goes to school and gets opportunities and access. For me, that's what I believe in, and for me, that's what drives me. And in everything I do, I try to just ensure that wherever I find myself at any particular point in time, I'm doing the best that I can do. I'm giving the best of myself, and I'm doing it with a spirit of excellence, because there's just no compromise for me in that respect. I think there are lots of, different little phrases that speak to me. I think the foremost one for me is the fact that you can become whatever you choose to be. And that there's no limitation in this life. We are the ones always putting limitations where there aren't. Another one for me is being focused on your values and not compromising your integrity. Because at the end of the day, the people that you think are watching you and having certain opinions about you or thinking about you, those things can't change who you are or what you are. So focus on what is important to you. And I think for me, more importantly, is be happy. Because discontent has caused a lot of people a lot of grief. Always wanting to look at what the other person is doing and mentally competing. The person may not even know you are competing with them. So be happy and be content with wherever you find yourself. But I must also say that being content doesn't mean there's no continuous improvement. The fact that I am content and happy with where I am today doesn't mean I don't want to get better than who I am today. But it means that I'm not constantly looking for validation from external parties, or I'm not constantly looking for material things to make me be happy in who I am. My take home for that young girl is to first and foremost remember that you are wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God. Meaning that you're unique, you're amazing, and God has deposited something in you, and only you can bring that thing to fruition. Will the road or the journey be easy? No. But when you set your mind, your values on who you want to be, what you want to become, you can achieve it despite distractions, limitations from your background, from finances, from anything. Just focus your mind on the ultimate goal. And remember that everything that looks like a disappointment or a failure is actually an opportunity to improve and get better. Because as the Bible tells us that the refiner of silver and gold, to make gold become what it is and sparkle and become of great value, it needs to go through an immense and extreme process to get from that raw, almost useless value to something of value. The same thing with diamond. Diamond in the rough is not worth the same as a polished and refined diamond. So just know that you can become whatever you choose to be, and that God has deposited all you need to be able to become what you want to become in you. You just have to believe, connect, with that inner you and work towards it. And don't let every disappointment or perceived failure keep you down, but rather let it be a stepping stone for you to keep climbing that ladder and keep going. And surely the world will become your oyster. And I like this saying, love life, live life, and life will be lovely.